All right, so the next problem that we're going to look at is problem number 6, where I have 4 and 6 tenths, and I'm multiplying that by 21. So first I'm going to do my estimate. So I'm going to do my estimate with decimals. So 4 and 6 tenths I'm going to round to 5, and 21 I'm going to round to 20. So 5 times 20 is going to be 100. So my answer should be somewhere around 100. Okay, so I'm going to look for that and check my reasonableness once I'm done. This will also help me determine where I should place my decimal as well, to make sure that I'm placing it in the right spot. So if I have 1 times 6, that's going to be 6. 1 times 4 is going to be 4. I put down my placeholder. 2 times 6 is going to be 12, so I put down the 2. I regroup the 1. And then 2 times 4 is going to be 8, plus 1 is going to be 9. I'm going to add these together. And right now I have 6, 6, and 9. So I have 966. So again, I use the standard algorithm to solve, and I worry about that decimal after. Well, if I were to do my comparison now, 966 is not near 100, but that's because I haven't placed my decimal. So I'm going to use that pattern. If here I have one number behind my decimal, that means in my product, I should have one number behind my decimal. So my answer is going to be 96 and 6 tenths, which is near my estimate. So that's going to let me know that my answer is reasonable. So notice I didn't do any of the talking about converting numbers or showing you that step, but I use that pattern that we talked about that, hey, I have one number behind my decimal here, which means I need to have one number behind my decimal here. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at our next problem. Our next problem that we have is going to be 6 tenths multiplied by 15. And so I'm going to take 6 tenths and I'm actually going to turn that into a half. And I'm going to take 15, and I don't know what a half of 15 is very easily, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to round that to 20. And so half of 20 is going to be 10. It's a reasonable estimate. Okay, now I'm going to multiply. Again, ignore that decimal and just treat it as 15 multiplied by 6. So 6 times 5 is going to be 30. So I'm going to put down my 0 and I'm going to regroup my 3. 5 times 0 is 0 plus 3 is going to be 30. Put down my placeholder, multiply now by 1. 1 times 6 is going to be 6, and then 1 times 0 is going to be 0. Okay, so my answer that I have is I have 90. Well, checking my reasonableness, 90 is not close to 10. So that tells me either I multiplied wrong or I forgot to look at the decimal pattern. I didn't look at the decimal pattern yet, so I need to do that. So here I have one number behind the decimal. So down in my product, I should have one number behind the decimal. So the decimal needs to move one place to the left. So my answer that I get is going to be 9. 9 is a reasonable answer for 10 as my estimate. Okay, so again, I'm using that pattern. So I did my standard algorithm, ignored the decimal, then I'm using that pattern to place the value. One number here behind my decimal means I have one number here behind my decimal. Okay, let's take a look at my next one. So the next one that I'm going to do, I'm not going to do the guided practice number 6. I just want you guys to see this because I want to do a 2-digit behind the decimal. So I'm going to do 89 hundredths multiplied by 21. Okay, so 89 hundredths multiplied by 21, and we'll see if that pattern still works. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to estimate. So 89 is near 1. I'm not going to change 21, so I'm going to do 21 times 1. My answer should be near 21. Okay, 1 times 9 is going to be 9. 1 times 8 is going to be 8. Put down my 0 and start my multiplying by my tens place value. 2 times 9 is going to be 18. I regroup the 1. 2 times 8 is going to be 16, plus 1 is going to be 17. Add my answers together. That's my standard algorithm. So 9 and 0 is going to be 9. 8 plus 8 is going to be 16. I'm going to regroup the 1. 1 and 7 is going to be 8, and then 1. So my answer is 1,869 because I've not placed my decimal yet. So I'm going to use my pattern. Here I have 2 digits behind the decimal. That means down here I should have 2 digits behind the decimal. So decimal always comes after the ones place unless it always comes after the ones place. So I'm going to move it 2 places to the left. So I'm going to multiply 1,869 by 1/100th and move it 2 places to the left. So 1, 2, my decimal is going to go right here. 18 and 69 hundredths is close to 21. So it is a reasonable answer. Okay. So let's take a look at number 1 really quickly, and then I'll wrap up the lesson and let you guys get into your independent practice and math practices and problem solving. It says, what is the difference between multiplying a whole number by a decimal and multiplying 2 whole numbers? So we're talking about the standard algorithm. When we multiply by 2 whole numbers, so when I do 2 whole numbers, I don't have to worry about the decimal point. But when I multiply a whole number by a decimal, the extra step that I have to do is determine where to place that decimal. And I always place the decimal after I multiply using the standard algorithm. So I determine decimal placement when I multiply a whole number by a decimal versus when I'm multiplying 2 whole numbers together. 2 whole numbers, I just multiply them together. But when I'm multiplying a decimal, I'm going to use that pattern to determine my decimal placement. Okay, so what I would like for you guys to do today is I don't want you to do all of the problems on your independent practice. I would like for you to do 9 through 20. You're only going to do your even numbers. So you do not have to do all of problems 9 through 20. You are going to do your even numbers, but you are going to do all of the problems on your math practices and problem solving. So you're going to do all of your problems on that backside.